IT, please let us know when we are streaming.
We are live.
Chair, we are ready.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board. Today, we are January the 14th, 2025, and Happy New Year to all of you. May we have a roll call, Raya?
Ma'am. Madam Chair Rios,
Here,
Member Vice Chair Guida,
excused,
Member Biche.
Here.
Member Bienvenu.
Here.
Member Aguilera Medrano.
Here.
Member Degnan. Member Mather.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
thank you very much. Are there any changes to the agenda? Heather or anyone else? Gary?
Chair, yes, there is. Under new business, item B, 2024-009650, HDVRB 2002 Irvine Street, postponed till February 11th. Item G, 2024-009613, HDRB 1182 Saragordo Road, postponed till January 28th.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Any other changes?
Not at this time.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as just amended? Board members?
Aguilar Medrano so moves.
Beachside seconds.
And may we have a roll call vote? Mariah?
Member Biche,
Yes.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Degnan, Member Mather.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no minutes on this agenda, but we do have findings of fact and conclusions of law. We have 8 for August 13th, 2024. Changes to any of these? Anybody? It appears not. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Moved. Beachside seconds.
Do we have a roll call?
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Degnan,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Biche.
Yes.
It has been approved.
Thank you. And we have 3 findings and conclusions from September the 10th, 2024. Changes to any of these? So speak up now, please. And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Beachside moves to approve findings of fact and conclusions of law from September 10, 2024.
Mather seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Biche,
Yes.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Degnan,
Yes.
Member Mather.
Yes.
It has been approved, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we have 1 from November 26, 2024. Changes to this one? No one. Motion, please.
Aguilar Medrano moves to approve item I from findings of fact and conclusion for November 26, 2024.
Beachside seconds. It's actually item L, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Correction, item L.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mariah?
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Degnan,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Bienvenu, Member Biche.
Yes.
It has been approved, Chair.
Thank you very much. Matters from the public. Is there anyone in this room that wishes to come forward and speak about anything not having to do with any particular cases this evening, but other matters pertinent to H Board matters?
Good evening, Stephanie Benanato. I'd like to point out, well, first of all, I think it's pretty outrageous that you're only adopting findings and facts and conclusions of law from August. If anybody wanted to appeal those cases, they have 50 days. This is like 3 times the amount of time. And so what, looks somehow those get just thrown into an appeal case later on. It's really prejudicial not to have those findings done in a timely way or to require the liaison to the board to have them done in a timely way. I also wanted to point out the case last week at 614 Paseo de Peralta. I did realize that it was incredibly prejudicial in that the first photo in the packet is the fence with a sign that says "Do not retain beeshide." That's the first photo in that packet. And it was shown over and over and over again. And that was one of the bases for requesting recusal, was seeing that as you went downtown to the post office, to the Vargas Mall, etc. I have to say that when I think somebody asks for a recusal, generally speaking, it should be looked at not from your perspective, but from the person who's requesting it, from their perspective. Just like with EEOC, it doesn't matter that the person telling the racist, sexist joke doesn't think it's racist or sexist. It's how the person hearing it, absorbs it. And it just seems like it happens so rarely that I hope next time it does, if it does happen again, that there'll be grace and self-confidence and just say, sure, if that's how you think, I'll recuse myself. There's a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else in this room wishing to come forward and speak on something that has to do with maybe concerning you? Yes, good evening.
Evening. I was just hoping to request that the hearing schedule for 2025 could be updated on the website, as well as the agendas, and for all the the board meetings get posted on PrimeGov, neither of which are up to date or posted right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can someone on staff address that, please?
Rios, with reference to the 2025 calendar, we'll make sure that gets uploaded. With reference to the PrimeGov, so there was a press release, and we have now moved to Civic Clerk, and you can find that on the website under Meetings and Agendas. When you first sign on to the homepage, you can select Meetings and Agendas, and then it will take you to that Civic Clerk site. So we did move from one platform to another.
Thank you. Anyone else? Or anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak at this time?
Rios, no hands are raised.
Do we have anything under staff communications?
Yes, Chair Rios. Just a quick update on the general plan update as well as the land development code update. We will be going through the public hearing process. It seems like we're on track for the phase 1 of the land development code update in February. Fortunately, just the way the stars aligned, we will be able to do our community engagement with the general plan update and the land development code update together for phase 2. A lot of those key issues that came up during the initial engagement with the community, do relate to both general plan policy as well as to land development code regulations. And so it's really great that we were able to obtain some additional funding from the governing body through the one-time spending to advance phase 2 for the land development code consultant so that the two can align. And I think that will be advantageous for the community to be able to provide input on both at the same time. So on January 29th, the governing body will be giving a presentation to, I'm sorry, the consultant will be giving a presentation to the governing body regarding the kickoff of the general plan update. And they will be coming also, probably managed by our staff, to a future board meeting to make the same presentation. So you have the opportunity to understand the community engagement plan and can offer some insight or suggestions if you wish. So we're excited about all the things that are coming our way, and we should probably be wrapping up our CLG project for this year. We do propose for this upcoming year for the Certified Local Government Grant Program to do an acequia study, and map the acequias, because the last update of that was with David Snow, I believe, in the late 1980s. And a lot has changed in Santa Fe. So we plan on requesting funding for the update to that.
Thank you very much for
Thank
that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Attorney Rubelit.
I wanted to pass along to the Historic Districts Review Board that the appeal on the status review decision by the by the Historic District Review Board that was made on March 12th, 2024 regarding the property at 718 Old Santa Fe Trail will be heard by the governing body tomorrow night. It's under item 21 on the agenda. Those are usually heard pretty late in the evening. That will be decided by the governing body tomorrow.
So Frank, that's the only appeal that's coming up?
It's the only appeal on the governing body agenda at this time. My understanding is there are some other appeals in the being processed in the land department.
Anyone else on staff wishing to comment on anything? No? We don't have anything under old business, but we do have 9 cases this evening under new business. So I'm going to ask for everyone's cooperation so this process can flow smoothly. I do have to tell you that if you disagree with the decision that this board renders this evening, you do have the option to appeal, and you can appeal to the city council. That would be done after the findings of fact and conclusions of law have been approved, and you'll have 15 days to do that. First case under new business is located at 1010 Camino San Acacio, and Paul is going to give us that report. Thank you, Paul.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just want to wish you all a happy new year. Thank you all for being here on this lovely evening. And we'll hopefully get through these pretty diligently. IT, could you please show my screen? In case number 2024009653 HDRB at 1010 Camino San Acacio is a single-family residence listed as non-contributing to the Downtown and Eastside Historic District. The 2,874 square foot main residential structure was built on a 0.27 acre lot in the early 1960s. The main structure was built in the Spanish Pueblo Revival architectural style, as seen by the adobe and rock foundation construction materials, recessed doors and windows, and wooden corbel elements. The structure was built by Mr. Louis Ewing, a well-known artist who lived and worked in Santa Fe from 1935 to 1983. As the Historic Cultural Property Inventory Form states, the building retains sufficient integrity of setting, design, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association to be contributing to the Santa Fe Downtown and Eastside Historic District. Mr. Ewing was most well known for his photographic work that he did for the Laboratory of Anthropology in 1939. Here we can see the north facade and the west facade facing from San Acacio, facing south. There's a low-hanging carport to the west and a built structure addition on top. And here you can see at the front on the on the west elevation at the corner and throughout the entire property, these wooden corbel elements, which are quite unique. The rock wall foundation and Adobe construction material. However, there has been some non-historic windows that have been replaced inside the structure. However, these corbel elements are quite unique to the downtown and east side historic district. Here we have the east elevation. You can see the corbel elements. There is a yard wall that is not historic. However, you do see the rock foundation wall in which the structure was built in throughout this entire structure on that east side elevation. Here's the south elevation. There's a deep recessed portal. And you can see some elements, but in this area, there has been some renovations and new glass doors, windows, and so forth. But you do have elements of the rock wall that can be seen on this south elevation. In the 1984 Historic Building Inventory form, here's a photograph of the structure. Now, we can see the rock wall, the corbels vaguely, and the yard, a retaining rock wall in front of the house. However, it's a little unclear exactly. So in the facade diagram, staff is recommending an upgrade to a contributing status, with the primary facades being designated in this facade diagram as 1, 2, 9, and the rock wall as a contributing structure as well. In the staff report, in the recommendation, staff identified it as number 3, and that is incorrect. It is number 2. So staff recommends the historic status of the structure and rock yard wall be upgraded to contributing, and the north, east, and west facades be designated as primary, identified in the facade diagram as numbers 1, 2, 9, and 10 for 14-5.2C, designation of significant and contributing structures. Thank you. Staff stands for questions.
Thank you for your report. Paul, for 65 years, has the footprint of this particular building stayed intact?
Madam Chair, as far as as far as the record shows, that it has been intact. No new additions have been illustrated on this property.
In reference to, it's obvious on the field trip we noted that the windows are new. Have those openings been changed?
Madam Chair, as far as staff knows, they have not.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff at this time? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just following up on that, Paul, I believe that the HICP indicated that the windows on those facades, especially the primary facade facing north, had been made smaller. Do you have a reason to disagree with the HICP in that regard?
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, no, sir.
Okay.
And with the motion, staff would exclude any non-historic materials except the one window on the north facade that is stained glass.
Right. So I guess there's agreement between staff and the HICP that all the windows, the windows themselves have all been changed and are non-historic. The HICP does indicate, I think, that even the openings are non-historic. So just a difference maybe of the reporting, but not necessarily of opinion. Is that accurate?
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, as far as our records indicate, there's not been any construction permits that identify previous work on this structure. So if the HICP states that, staff would recommend a historic architect to give a further guidance, maybe some further information is needed to really hone in on that information.
Great. That's what I was looking for clarification on. Thank you.
Any other questions, board members? If not, will the applicant please come forward and get sworn in?
Hi. Can you please raise your right hand? State your name and address for the record.
Daniel Strongwater to Camino Pequeño, Santa Fe.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Thank you. He has been sworn in, Chair.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I am acting as the agent for the residents of this property here. I don't have a tremendous amount to add to what Paul declared. We did do quite a bit of digging into the history of Lou Ewing, which I hope you got to see in some of the report there. Really fascinating artist that was really influential in early printmaking. And he actually constructed the house himself. There's a really lovely article that was attached to the application as well that detailed some of the stories of when he was building the house. Actually, much of the rubble foundation was excavated by the city when they were doing a sewer project along the road. The folks that were digging up the sewer would save special rocks for Lou Ewing and help him drag them up to the house to build that rubble foundation wall. So it's really nice that that still exists. I did want to share a little more about what we understand of the history. In 2021, that the house was considered non-contributing and still is on the maps of the city. At the time, a developer purchased the house essentially directly from the chain of Lou Ewing and his widow, and was, to our knowledge, given administrative approval to re-stucco to replace all of the windows. We believe that the window openings are the same size, although there's evidence of stucco that the stucco work that extends a couple feet out from the existing windows. And I believe that's what the Higbee is referring to answer your questions there, John. So we believe all the openings remain the same. We also believe that it is unlikely that had the case been brought through what we understand the process to be today, that all these changes would have been made in the same way that they did. So you probably saw all of those window openings and all the other changes there. We would like to request that the board consider not designating the a few minor things. So the homeowners, before they understood the entire process here, did excavate a parking spot on the northeast corner of the lot. And so that is the current state of that corner of the lot. As part of what we plan to go through with the board, we would like to bring all of this above board and provide that in an upcoming proposal. We would request that the board exclude the east facade from a primary designation. It has received significant modifications from what we understand the original facade to appear to be. It has a non-original door, as you can see, non-original windows, a non-original yard wall, as well as mechanical runs and entirely new stucco. It does have the corbels, which we believe to be significant and important as an architectural feature. However, we would desire that facade itself does not receive a primary designation, given that it is, excuse me, one of the only real buildable areas left on the site. I'm not sure if you had a chance to visit on the south side of the property, but it's much more complicated area to construct. So that is one desire of the applicants, as well as ideally that the carport and the storage building above it not be designated as primary. I believe that is also as staff recommend. So we agree with that. I think that's about all I have to share. I'm happy to answer other further questions about historic details or the property based on the historic research we did.
Thank you. Board members, do you have questions at this time for the applicant? Well, I found it interesting that the owners were given approval during COVID. And I was just wondering if that was an administrative approval or did it come before the board?
It was an administrative approval.
And that was in reference to the windows.
It wasn't, my understanding is that it was in reference to both the windows as well as the restuccoing. I'm not entirely sure what else was contained within that. Apparently, records from that period of time are no longer available. I'm not sure. Staff shared something about a large tranche of historic administrative approval and cases that are no longer available that we didn't have access to put together our proposal here to you tonight. So what I know of it is from in discussing, I was able to get in touch with the developer that did that. And he shared that he received administrative approval for the non-contributing status or tied to the non-contributing status, was not asked to come before the board for any updates to that status.
Thank you. Found this building, some of us were on the field trip and I'm glad you have those photos up because I don't know that I've ever seen a building here in Santa Fe with so many corbels all around that roof line. It is a really unique feature.
It really is. One other really unique feature that I thought was so interesting that I also hadn't heard of anywhere else is that he constructed the walls out of concrete block and filled them all with pumice as insulation, which was I think an innovation of his or friends of his. I think he was part of a real folk architecture movement at the time. And I know that he hand cut all of those corbels himself. So it was really it's a really special house. And
Have you ever counted them?
there's quite a lot. They do not continue along the south facade. They're only on the east, north, and west facades. Although they are carried through the carport, which is really lovely.
Thank you.
They are not the most wonderfully constructed, but it really does represent the folk architecture of the time, and I think it's really charming.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone in this room wishing to come forward and comment on this particular project? And Stephanie Beninato is coming forward. She needs to get sworn in.
Thank you. Can you please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record?
Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it's unfortunate that the staff decided to administratively approve this without actually thinking about a status review on this house, a few years ago. I really am happy that the owner and the agent are so enthusiastic about certain details in the house and the history with Ewing, the artist. I can understand not wanting all three facades being primary. Although again, we just have to remind people that just because you've replaced a window, if the opening's the same and everything else, the footprint's intact and it's more than 50 years old, it could be contributing and that could be considered primary. I do also want to say that this civic clerk portal is not working well. I had a lot of trouble. The only way I got to see anything about this agenda tonight was to have a link sent to me. A city councilor actually sent me a working link. And I do know also that in terms of archived meetings, that your meetings stopped. They go from 2016 to 2020, and all the others have yet to be posted on this new portal. So it's extremely frustrating and limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else in this room wishing to comment on this particular project? It appears not. Anyone on Zoom?
Yes, Chair. Robin 505, I have promoted you so that you can speak. Please state your name and address for the record and then be sworn.
Robin Gavin, 117 Rio Hondo Road.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. Madam Chair, first, well, I would like to thank the owners for their care and interest in this historic house because it is extremely important, given all that Louis Ewing contributed to the art and culture here in Santa Fe. But mostly I'm raising my hand because none of the report was viewable on Zoom. There doesn't seem to be any connection to the report that's being presented. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul?
Madam Chair, pardon me, Robin, were you
Yes.
not able to see the PowerPoint presentation?
No, none of it. I'm just seeing the room.
IT, pardon me, is there?
Share it to Zoom. So,
Going to iron out some technical issues.
Madam Chair, Robin, can you now see the presentation?
No.
Just want to Cherios and members of the board and the public. So in order for all presentations, they have to be sent over to Heather so she can share them on the Zoom. So we'll try to get that resolved going forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Say patience is a virtue.
Yes, thank you. We were having complications at governing body. So, Robin, one quick question. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, thank you.
Fabulous. Is there a particular slide or question that you have? I'll scroll through them quickly.
No, I don't believe so because I'm familiar with this house. So thank you.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just wanted you to know that you need this for your recordings, I think. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on Zoom?
No, Chair Rios?
Board members, I am ready if you do not have any questions or comments to entertain a motion. Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, thank you for all the work you're doing on this project. It's a very interesting house with a great history. And of course, the association with the artist makes it very important to preserve. And I'm sympathetic with staff's desire to protect all the publicly visible facades as well as the applicant's desire to be able to continue to live in the house. So I'm going to try to find some compromise here that allows us to achieve both purposes. We'll see if it flies. So in case 2024 009653 HDRB 1010 Camino San Nicasio, I'd move to adopt staff's recommendations that the house be designated as contributing for the reasons set forth in the staff report and the HICP and the presentation tonight. And the contributing wall, the rock wall along the street also be designated as contributing. And that facades 1 and 9 be designated as primary, but that a finding additionally be entered that facade number 2, though not primary, does have distinctive characteristics that are important to be retained, most specifically the roof line and the continuation of the corbel patterns from the other facades. And that under our ordinance, even on non-primary facades, such characteristic historic features shall be preserved. On the primary facades, the windows themselves are excluded from the designation as being non-historic, with the exception of the stained glass window, which is included in the primary facade designation and is also specifically recognized as important to the character of the house. And I think that covers everything.
Thank you. And do I hear a second?
Each was second, and maybe just a friendly amendment to acknowledge the rubble rock foundation as a characteristic that is worthy of preservation in this designation.
Okay, I accept that as friendly. I should also add to that there was some potential confusion about the openings of the windows, but that seems to have been resolved, that the openings themselves are all historic.
Thank you. Anything further to add, board members? If not, roll call vote, please.
Member Beechard?
Yes.
Member Bienvenu?
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano?
Yes.
Member Dagnan?
Yes.
Member Mather?
Yes.
Motion has passed.
Very much. And thank you. Next case is located at 1226 Cerro Gordo, and this is Lanny's case. And is the applicant here? Yeah. Lanny, you have the floor.
Just 1 second. I got
And Chair Rios, I have shared this to Zoom, so I'll follow along with Lanny's.
Can you hear me? Okay, good evening. This is case 2024-9611 for 1226 Cerro Gordo Road. 1226 Cerro Gordo Road is located on the north side of the road at the portion of Cerro Gordo that connects to South Armijo Lane. The single-family residence is listed as non-contributing to Downtown and East Side Historic District. The vernacular style residence is 1,607 square feet, including the covered portal in the rear of the structure, and stands at a height of 12 feet. The structure was constructed in 1949, according to the County Tax Assessor's Office, and 10 windows were replaced in 2024 under case 24-8528 admin. The applicant is proposing the following exterior alterations. To raise the parapet high on the lower portion of the residence from 10 feet to 12 feet to match the higher level. To construct a 114 square foot portal on the south elevation of the residence to a height of 10 feet, where the maximum allowable height is 14 feet 1. And relocate the entry door on the south elevation to the east. Install a window to the west of the relocated door, and repair the stucco to match the existing stucco, which is cementitious La Luz. These are the portal details in case you need those. One more slide. And the slide I had. Sorry. There you go. Now I'm ready to change the slide. The staff is recommending approval of the proposed project as it finds that the application complies with section 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 5.2E for downtown and east side design standards. Stand for questions.
Thank you, Lanny. I was just going to ask you, what are the materials for the portal?
The portal is going to be wood columns, and then the roof is going to be a galvanized aluminum, acrylic coated galvanneal roofing. It's a metal roof.
Is that going to have separations, or is it one solid piece on the porch?
It's open.
Say
So
that again?
it's gonna be open, so you'll have columns on either end of it. But the rest of it will be,
But the metal itself, is it one solid piece or is it going to have seams?
should be one single piece.
We'll ask the applicant, or the applicant can clarify. Any other questions? None. Applicant, please come forward.
Can you please raise your right hand? State your name and address for the record.
Marjorie Howe, 107 Calle Don Jose.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Thank you. Chair, she has been sworn in.
My intention is to have a metal standing seam roof.
Thank you. And did you have anything further to add to what staff just told us?
I am very much looking forward to living on one level, and some of the existing details need improvement and a little more aesthetic. Fiberglass door with plastic windows, the front. Move it over so it doesn't bisect the main entry room. And then I am planning on replacing all the windows. Gone through that application.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? It appears not. Anyone in this room wishing to comment on this particular project? And Stephanie Beninato, she's been sworn in already.
I had just one question, Stephanie Beninato. I just had one question, and that is the raising of the parapet. Is that needed for the portal? Because it was kind of nice having that change in elevation. It made it more visually interesting. And do see there's another higher elevation, I think, of the same building. So it's not all one, the parapet is not all one, but that's just my question.
Thank you.
In answer to that, the original reason for raising of the parapet was for a future addition of solar panels, because house faces directly south. And I would hope that a taller parapet would hide the solar panels. In reconsidering it, I wish I had revised this application to raise that parapet so that it is higher than the existing one that is to the east. Because I also agree it is interesting to have a staggered profile of the parapets. So I'm not sure what the procedure would be, whether I need to start over resubmitting or make a change. But this is where.
Thank you. Heather, is there anyone else wishing to comment on Zoom?
Chair Rios, no.
Board members, what are your wishes? Member Benvenu.
Could we ask staff to address the issue as to whether or not a new application would need to be made if the applicant wishes to
Make those changes.
raise the parapet beyond the drawing, or if that could be addressed?
Planning, can you come forward? In reference to
Yeah.
the raising of the parapet?
I don't think so. I think we could, if she wanted to ask if she could have a higher parapet, you guys could still raise it greater than what she's done in this application, rather than make her come back.
Chair Rios, it's always the board always has the opportunity to render a conditional approval to account for that. Since this case advertised a change to the parapet, that would not be out of line when it comes to public notice.
Thank you. That being said, I will entertain a motion.
Not for a motion yet, because I think maybe one was going to be made on the left, but just a comment on that. I guess I would personally, as a board member, be somewhat uncomfortable making a change on the fly to increase the parapet without it being in front of us as an as set forth in an application where we could see elevation drawings and consider it that way, especially how it would fit in with the requested portal. So it's difficult for me to know whether that would be an improvement or not without seeing drawings. So I'd be reluctant to address that as a board member tonight.
Other viewpoints on this board or comments? Member Beachside?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the same thought. And I wish our architect was here tonight. I don't know if the portal roof should be raised accordingly with the parapet height. Like, should the portal then be 2 feet higher? I'm a little unsure. I'd like to help the applicant with approval tonight, but I'm unsure what should be adjusted to accommodate additional parapet height.
Any of the board members want to make any more comments as to the raising of the parapet? I think they're giving it a little bit more thought. Let's see what happens. Well, we do have to get through this, and I will entertain a motion.
I'm fine. Make the motion then.
Member Benjamin.
Thank you. In case number 2024-009611 HDRB 1226 Cerro Gordo Road, I would move to adopt staff's recommendations and approve the application as submitted.
Do I hear a second? Second. Member Degnan, would you second? Anything further? Roll call vote, please.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Degnan,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano. Yes. Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Beechide.
Yes.
The motion has been approved, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. As you heard, applicant, the board did approve the project as submitted this evening, but you do have the option, if you want to make any further changes, you do have the option to come before the board again. Okay, thank you.
And Madam Chair, I'm sorry if I can ask for clarification. What the board has approved is raising the parapet to a height of 12 feet, which is what was submitted, but not more than that. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. That's a clarification I need.
Next case is located at 312 Pino Road in Hall. May we hear from you?
Madam Chair, members of the board, in case number 2024-009323, the single-family residence at 312 Pino Road is designated as contributing to the downtown and east side historic district. The main residential structure was constructed in the late 1920s on a 0.07 acre lot with approximately 1,230 square feet of roofed area. The structure was built in the quintessential Santa Fe vernacular design style, as seen by the adobe block construction materials, shed roof, and recessed doors and windows. There have been several additions and alterations to the property and structure throughout the years. In 1957 and 58, a portal was added to the front of the house, the west-southwest elevation, and a closet was built onto the southeast corner. The Arroyo Pino acequia, which resides on the south end of the property, was covered sometime in the 1950s. The stone wall, originally 4 feet in height, increased to over 5 feet in the late 1960s. The original wall is considered historic since it was constructed prior to 1966. A utility and bathroom was built onto the south side of the house in 1981, per Murphy's 2024 HCPI, Historic Cultural Property Inventory. The applicant requests approval for the following exterior alterations: to replace non-historic windows and doors on the north facade. An exception to remove historic materials, the bucks, is requested under section 14-5.2 D1A. Install a security gate on the French doors on the north facade. An exception is requested to add an architectural feature to a primary facade under section 14-5.2 D5E. Replace non-historic French doors on the west elevation in order to lower the sill to ground level. Replace historic corner windows on the southwest corner. An exception to remove historic materials is requested under section 14-5.2 D5A1 AI. Relocate the cellar access entrance currently on the west portal floor, screen the meters on the south elevation, and replace a window on the middle door painted to match the stucco on the south elevation. Install a ground-mounted HVAC with concealed line sets on the east elevation and stucco residence using cementitious stucco in a color matching the existing. So here is our north elevation, and this is our primary facade. In the historic architect's assessment of the windows and doors are considered to be non-historic. The rock wall is considered to be a contributing structure on this property. Here on the east elevation shows the additions of the laundry room. Here we have the south and the west elevations. Here is the one window by the historic architect's assessment, the steel casement window that wraps around on that south and southwest facade that is considered to be historic. Here they have the trellis in which they are looking to repair and the other doors and windows on that south west facade. Here is the existing and proposed site plan. On the site plan, it shows the decorative middle railing, John Gaume style kind of wrought iron screening where the French doors facing Pino Road, as well as the locations of where new windows and the cellar door will be replaced and repaired. So here we have the existing and proposed floor plans showing the locations of the windows and doors and the cellar and the HVAC. The existing and proposed north elevation. Here we have the meme-inspired screening for these French doors. All the windows will be replaced as well as the French doors, and that screening will be placed in front. Staff recommended an exception given an element on a primary facade, and staff recommends approval of that exception. Here we have the existing and proposed east elevation. Here they're looking at installing an HVAC system on the property, on the structure, with line sets running through the structure. It's not publicly visible and shouldn't be an issue. The existing and proposed south elevation, they're looking at repairing the trellis. They're looking at removing one window and installing a middle door, security door, and repairing that enclosure for the meter. They're looking at replacing the lower door and replacing that steel casement window. Here's the existing and proposed west elevation. They're proposing to replacing that historic window identified by the historic architect. The steel casement currently is identified by the historic architect as being repairable and in relatively good shape. The applicant is proposing to replace that steel casement window with something very comparable, something that mimics what's currently there. Here's the window and door schedule for the structures, the divided light windows, and the stucco and trim colors in which they're proposing. So given that, staff finds that the exception criteria have been met and recommends approval of the application as it complies with 14-5.2D general design standards for all historic districts and 14-5.2E downtown and east side design standards. Should the board deny one or all of the exception requests, the applicant shall revise their application and return to the board for review and approval as needed. Thank you. Staff stands for questions.
Thank you, Paul. With the exception of the steel casement windows, the applicant is requesting to replace all windows that are wood, correct? In kind.
Madam Chair, that is correct.
And there you will have true divided light.
Madam Chair, that is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Same size,
Yes.
in kind. Thank you. Other questions, board members? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you, Paul. Everything that you've reported seems very sensible to me, with the exception of the steel casement window. So what I understand from the history of the property that we've been given is that is probably circa 1955 that the steel combination window was put into place. Is that your understanding as well?
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, between 1955 and the early 1960s.
Okay. Because the 1984 building inventory gave it a specific date of 1955. Or whatever that's worth. I don't know how they came to that determination.
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, in the historic architect's report, he states that's the early 1960s.
Right. So we have several dates. The earliest version from 1984, which was the official form, said 1955. Then we have Ray Peterson's architectural report that says 1960s, I think, but still historic. And then the historian's Higbee from 2024 describes that window as a circa 1950s steel combination window. So it's either mid 1950s or early 1960s. That the historian also describes that as the most authentic unit on the entire house. You agree with that?
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, that's a great question. Given the site visit today, I would say all the windows and doors are historic and the openings. But I'm not a historic architect, and I can only give you that opinion. This steel casement, we know that it's mid 1950s to the early 1960s. It is on a primary facade. It is, the historic architect does make a recommendation that it is repairable and it is in good shape. And I think that is something to take into consideration, that is his evaluation of this steel casement window. However, the other windows and doors, they're non-historic and they can be replaced. And I may disagree with that. I think they're all historic. So staff did recommend approval of the exception criteria, but also in the recommendation of approval, in our staff's recommendations, we do put in that if the board should deny one of the exceptions or all the exceptions, that the applicant can come back to the board and share what they're moving forward in the future.
So, okay. Yeah, so we're in kind of a frustrating position because we have the window assessor's report that describes all of the windows and doors other than the steel casement combination window on the southwest corners being non-historic, but staff is saying that in your opinion, they are historic. You believe they're at least 50 years old. So, you know, we have a difference of professional opinion that we're being presented with, and I'm not sure how we're supposed to resolve that. We typically do rely on the window assessor's report, but that's typically done for the purpose of a professional opinion as to whether or not the windows are repairable or not, as opposed to what exact date they have. They do look older than the 1980s, which is what the window assessor dated them at. And I guess I would just wonder how we can resolve that issue tonight, because it would be a shame to allow, well, we couldn't allow the replacement of those windows if they're historic without granting an exception, which isn't for us tonight except for the steel window. So it's a conundrum that I think we're being faced with, that we may need to defer to have another professional opinion given in. But the one that's not really in dispute as far as its age goes and whether its historic status is the steel window. And I would just say with respect to that in my mind, the board has been very consistent in upholding the ordinance, which is crystal clear that no historic windows are to be replaced, but rather restored if they are restorable. And of course, exceptions can be granted for that. But in this case, the exception criteria or the exception grounds that are being presented are simply energy efficiency, which is the grounds that's presented in every case. And we have routinely denied that as being a sufficient ground when there are alternatives to achieve the same purpose. And I think we would be both to approve it under these circumstances with the record that's been presented to us would be unfair to those who have been denied in the past, as well as setting a unfortunate precedent for any cases that came before us in the future. And until the governing body decides they want to amend the ordinance, I believe that the board is required to enforce it as written.
Comments? Any other comments or questions, board members? So Paul, you feel that the windows, the wood windows are historic. And I know you, what is your assessment in reference to the quality of those windows at this time?
Madam Chair, great question. Walking the site and reviewing the doors and windows, it is single pane wood, divided light windows is something in the 1950s era. From my very minimal experience in the historic districts, I would say that the windows and doors, the wooden windows and doors that are single pane glass are historic. In the historic architect's assessment, he doesn't make that recommendation. However, I would make that recommendation. I believe they are.
Let's hear from the applicant. Mr. Martinez. Oh, yes, Member Bichak.
Just,
Hold on.
just a comment, I guess. So in 2016, the same property came before the board with a request to replace windows. And at that time, the board requested an assessment of the windows. And they were deemed repairable. According to the staff report today, they were deemed repairable and were required to be repaired rather than replaced. But I don't think that happened. It seems really inconsistent now to say that we're not going to pay attention to the assessment that was requested many years ago, but that has been our regular practice when we aren't sure about the status of windows to request a window assessor, a professional window assessor to make a suggestion, and we typically go with that. I will also say that I believe we have recently approved the replacement of metal casement windows at Cristo Rey Church. A few of those were replaced with wood windows that are the same light pattern. And I believe we also approved a replacement of casement windows on Canyon Road recently. Remember, right, on the whole house. And the logic in that case was rather than having a set of metal windows on the primary facade and then having wood windows on the rest of the facades that weren't primary, that it would be better to have a consistent window program for the house. So just a few comments, not.
We'll hear from you, Mr. Martinez.
Please raise your right hand. Thank you. State your name and address for the record.
Martinez, P.O. Box 925, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Chair, he has been sworn in.
First of all, I want to say this house is beautiful. It's right on the street. And if you notice, the other houses that are around it are also right on the street. It's a bit of old Santa Fe planning where the street was defined by the buildings, not like the American planning where the house sat in the middle of a lot and was surrounded by a wall. So I think this is really wonderful, way that it sits right on the street. We propose several things. Replacing the metal window. It is true that being metal, that there is an integrity to the window itself, but there's also the operation of the window. Window leaks, doesn't close tightly because it's warped. It doesn't because it is it's not able to be opened because it's warped again. And so there is the matter of the integrity of the window, and there's the matter of the integrity of the operation of the window. And so even though it would be easy to retain the window and see that it's just similar to what it was before, it doesn't work. And it lets air into the house, and it sweats in the cold, and the sweat freezes, and so it actually puts water on the wall and on the sill of the opening for the window. On the main facade on the street side of the house, we're proposing to change those 3 wood windows. Those windows are old, but they are not, according to the window assessor, they are not the windows that were on the house. These were windows, these are sashes that were put in place to close those openings. Again, they don't operate very well, and they don't seal very well because they're not the windows They were replaced in the 80s, but they were replaced with old sashes of windows. So according to the window assessor for Ray Patterson. So we're proposing to replace those windows as well, so that we can, with wood windows, it would be painted, it would have the same pattern of lights, and would also be sealed correctly, and would look exactly the same, be the same recess and all that, but would not be sort of a cartoonish look. As you see now, you'll see that the windows are not exactly the same. There's some of them have these trim pieces to try to close them up, and others don't. They are sashes from another place. They are not the windows of this house. The windows of this house are gone. Those were replaced in the 80s with these sashes. We are also on that front facade, there is a door opening. That door goes into the dining room of this little house. We're proposing that we would put a metal railing at the bottom of the door, so that you could open the door, but you couldn't step out. Babies could fall into the street, all that, so that it would, would serve like a door, door slash window. It would be on the second floor where you would open it but not be able to step out. We had to write an exception for this because it's on the primary facade. This element is not a structure. It's more like a light fixture. In other words, you could take it away, repair the stucco, and you would never know it had been there. It is not intended to be anything built. It's just going to be a beautiful wrought iron railing that goes in front of the plan that I have in the drawings. That goes on that over that door. We also are proposing in the back of the house on the non primary facades that we enclose the utilities, that we add a mini split, and that we change a window into a door, so that the main bedroom has access to the outside. You can see that there's very little yard around the house. They actually even have a grate over the acequia, so they could use part of that space as well. I stand for any questions.
I just have a comment in reference to the door that's in the north elevation. I found that very interesting, Richard. Does that open to the outside?
No, it opens in.
It will open in?
Yes.
Oh,
The door now opens in, and I don't think there's any screen door. So the screen door would open out if there was one, but there's no screen doors on that door.
thank you. Yes, member
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Medrano.
There it goes. Richard, I just had a quick question on the south elevation where you're replacing a window with a door. Can you tell us a little bit more about that door? I know it looks just like a flat metal door right now, and I know that's to a bedroom. You usually have such beautiful attention to detail, like with finishes. Was there any conversation about, will that door have any more ornamentation, or is it really just going to be a flat metal door painted to match stucco?
Okay, so originally the door, the owners asked that it would be like a security door, that it would be a way that they could come out, but it wouldn't look like a door from the outside. So that's why it was just a solid door painted the color of the stucco so that you can see it. But in our last submittal to this body, we changed that door. Now it looks like this.
Okay.
And so that's what that door is going to look like. It's going to have glass, and metal in it. Okay.
Got it. Okay. I think that was my only question right now. Thank you.
Member Degnan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Martinez, the casement windows that we are talking about, are they historic?
The windows are not.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Richard, just to get clarity here, I'm just a bit confused. So tell me where in the window assessor's report you're referring to when you say that he said that these were historic sashes, but not from the original house that were added.
Yes, I will put you from his report. And he and I had more discussions after the fact so that I could understand what he was saying as well. He said the windows for the bucks for windows G, H, and I are historic. However, the sashes are barn sashes that have exterior and interior blind stops that were replaced in the 1980s and early 1990s and are non-historic. That's what his report says. The drip cap, the part of it over the windows themselves, is a cove mold from the 1980s that has a mill finish aluminum weather stripping. So that's in his report. The report was that the parts of the window that are in the wall, in the stucco, are historic. The sashes themselves are not. They were barn sashes that were put in place.
I guess what you're saying is they could be historic in the sense that they're old.
They're old.
They're not historic to this house.
That's right. That's right. And that makes sense to me because, for instance, many houses, my house included, the house that my grandparents built in Pecos, we had to replace the window in the kitchen because all the other windows were the same, except this window was gone. They had put in plate glass. We found the barn sashes that matched the others. These windows were not willy-nilly sizes. They were all basically the same sizes. They were used over and over and over again. Just like the steel windows, which incidentally, the steel windows were like the cheapest windows you could get at that time. They were like, you could go down to like, what is it, Sanborn's? What is the name of the hardware store? But in any case, you could go and get those windows, put them in your house, put in glass, and they were the least expensive windows. They were a way to not have to do wood windows in your house, but also have windows.
Okay. I'm going to open it for public comment. Anyone in this audience wishing to comment?
Stephanie Benanato. To me, any project that has as many exceptions requested is just too many, that it needs to be re-examined and perhaps reevaluated. If the bucks are historic, then I would hope that the board would require the bucks in the window to remain. I know that I gave away a lot of windows that were rope pulley windows in the house I live in now to Cornerstones, who put it in another historic house. I understand it's not historic to that house. I mean, it hasn't been in that house forever, but it is a historic window. I mean, people need to replace windows here and there. And so it's just part of maintenance. And they went to the trouble of getting historic windows, not new double pane windows. And and also for the one that's the metal window, you know, okay, maybe they were cheap, but they are still historic. And if it's a functional window and that's what the window assessment says, then I think you need to follow your precedent. And just because you allowed a house on Canyon Road whose other windows were wood to replace some that were metal, that seems consistent with the look of the house. And I'm sure that Cristo Rey got extra consideration given that it's an institutional building as opposed to a residence. So I would ask that you maintain that precedent of maintaining historic windows that are operational. The other thing is the mini split. I would wish that you would require it to be screened if it is visible from the street. I understand it needs some space to get air, but you could still screen it from the street. And then I also find it very unnecessary, problematic, and not at all historically accurate to have little, like what I think of as a Romeo Juliet balcony detail there in front of in front of that door. It's not a security anything really, because it's not going to keep somebody out if you have your door open. It may keep your dog or your 2-year-old from running out the door, but there's probably other ways of doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this case? Anyone on Zoom? Heather?
I want to
Richard?
a couple of things. The security rail for the door is necessary because that door is out of compliance with zoning. I mean, in other words, we would have to put steps on the outside of that door and a landing if we didn't have something, if we didn't close that door or put something that doesn't allow anybody to go out that door. The sashes of those windows, the bucks of that window, the part that is inside the stucco, those are rotted and they're out of square. And they would also, if we put in windows, the windows would have to be smaller than they were because those bucks acted as the frames for the windows. So if we want to put frames on windows, we need to replace those bucks with our new windows.
Thank you. In viewing the screening area, the metal screening area on the door, on the field trip, I felt that it's necessary because that door is right on the street. I feel that even for safety reasons, or if the occupants want to open the door and you're right on the street. So, and you're not screening the entire door, you're screening part of it.
Yeah, that's right. Only up to
Mhm.
3 feet high and with an iron rail and decorative iron rail. If you could see in the drawings, I did there's a detail on the iron. It's going to be beautiful. I hope that you can show my drawing.
And as far as the mini split, that's in a non-visible area.
That's right. It's already screened by the wall that is existing on the house. Yes.
So,
Which is feet away from it, not tens of feet, just feet. As you saw on that side of the house, the yard is like very, very small.
board members, I will entertain a motion at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion. In case number 2024-009323 HDRB at 312 Pino Road, I move to approve the application as submitted and consistent with staff recommendations, noting that the exception criteria have been met. And with the condition that the drawings be updated to reflect the new door detail on the south facade prior to seeking a permit.
Do I hear a second?
Neither seconds.
Is there any further discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Dagnan,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano, Member Bienvenu,
No.
Member Beechen.
Yes.
Madam Chair, your motion has been approved.
Thank you. Good evening. The next case is located at 423 Camino Don Miguel. This is Paul's case, and Paul, you have the floor.
Well, if you could tell me when to advance, that way I can check, right, stay in line with you. Thank you.
You. Madam Chair, members of the board, in case number 2024-009651, the single-family residence at 423 Camino Don Miguel. Heather, thank you. The single-family residence at 423 Camino Don Miguel is listed as non-contributing to the Downtown and Eastside Historic District. The historic portion of the residence was constructed in the mid-1930s on a 0.35 acre lot and comprised of 860 square feet of roofed area. The structure was constructed in the Santa Fe vernacular design style, as seen by the flat roof, adobe block construction material, and 3/1 double-hung wooden windows. The main residential structure and garage have seen multiple periods of additions in the late 1950s to early 1960s and in the early 1980s, as identified in aerial photography and the roof line. The original adobe block structure has been enveloped by portal additions to the east and west facades and a larger family room, dining room, and laundry room addition to the south facade. The only remaining visible core of the original structure can be seen from the north facade. A second story was added to the garage in the early 1980s, and it now serves as an accessory dwelling unit. Here we have the north elevation, and as you can see at the site visit today, the 3/1 windows, and the structure is quite unique in that it was kind of enveloped from that initial 860 square feet. And then you had a portal addition on the west elevation, the east elevation, and the dining room, living room, and all of those additions framed out to the south. And I think the 3/1 double hung windows on the north elevation and onto that northeast elevation give precedence of that would be the original core construction of the structure. Here on the south elevation along the streetscape and inside the coyote fence inside the yard, you can see this portal addition on the south, and then this open pane window, and the roof line gives a good idea of the additions that have occurred throughout time. So you can see like the parapeted roof, then you have a flat roof, then you have a partial slope pitched roof, and you see all these kind of amalgamations of the roof and the additions throughout time on this property. And this is would have been the latest 1980s addition. Here we have on the southwest and that northwest, the portal additions. You do have the 3/1 windows and that open pane window. So here is a unique application, given that I've never seen this before, given to the Historic Districts Review Board. The applicant is proposing to remove 1,570 square feet of non-historic elements surrounding the adobe core structure. In that, they're looking at constructing 200 and 40 square feet of portal additions on the east and south facades. Install wooden clad divided light windows and doors. Raise yard wall height to 5 feet 7 inches on the west property line. Remove existing coyote fence on the south property line and replace it with a 5-foot high, 5-foot 7-inch masonry wall. Construct a 5-foot 7-inch coyote fence along the north property line. Remove wooden fence, and then restucco the 2-story and the 2-story accessory dwelling unit and the house, and raise the roof to 13 feet 10 inches where the maximum height allowed is 13 feet 11 inches. So here is what the applicant is proposing. Here is what they're looking at, a final product on this proposed site plan, which I think is quite impressive. Here you have the existing floor plan. You have the portals and that addition to the south, and they're looking at minimizing this structure back to the adobe construction material with that east portal and the south portal. Here's your existing and proposed north elevation. They're looking at replacing the aluminum sliding window and the current window on that north facade to all divided light windows, removals of the portals, and a new addition of that new portal. And the removal of that western portal and the addition that you can see where that door line, the door axis, making this home a nice, compact, cozy Santa Fe Pueblo revival style structure. Here again, you can see on the existing east and proposed east elevations, the removal of all the portal additions, the laundry room, the dining room, and making it and uncovering that adobe core construction. The existing and proposed south elevations, again, you can see the removal of the additions on the core structure from the portal additions, the open pane windows, and back down to the Santa Fe Pueblo revival style wooden lintels, wooden corbel, portal, and divided light windows and doors. Here we have the existing and proposed west elevation. On the west elevation, they're looking at removing the portals. And here they have the 3/1 windows. They're looking at reestablishing the 3/1 windows on that west elevation. Here is the yard wall diagram elevations showing the raising of the coyote fence to 5 feet 7 inches along with the CMU stuccoed wall. And here are the exterior finishes, stucco and cementitious El Rey La Luz, sandstone and new doors and windows, divided lights, and an aqua mist wood trim color, and then the exterior lights. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with section 14-5.2D General Design Standards for all historic districts and 14-5.2E Downtown and East Side Design Standard. I'm sorry, Heather. I totally spaced out. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Staff stands for questions.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments? Board members, Member Beachhead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree, this is a pretty unique and amazing project. Was a allowable wall height calculation done for this property?
Madam Chair, Member Beachhead, yes, ma'am.
And what is the allowable height?
Maximum allowable height for the wall is 5 feet 7 inches.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? None. Applicant or applicants, please come forward. Are the applicants here?
There is Tim online? Tim Curry?
It's 15056 has raised their hand. So it may be.
Madam Chair, board members, my name is Mark Brown.
Actually, can you give me just a second? Can you swear in really quick? Thank you.
And I-
Raise your right hand.
And I'm
Please.
present, Madam Chair and board members. I am online.
Okay, be sworn after,
Do we want to
Mr.
swear?
Brown.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So the one online,
Oh.
gentleman online is going first?
Yes, I suppose.
Okay. Can you go ahead and, well, first, please raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record, please.
Tim Curry, 1415 West Alameda Street, Santa Fe.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you very much. You have been sworn in.
Madam Chair and board members, I am overwhelmed with the idea of this project going forth, where the clients, in an amazing gesture and an amazing concept of restoring this house back to the original footprint. And it's really been, I think, my favorite project that I've ever worked on in the historic district. So we're really, really pleased to present this project to you. And I stand for any questions that you may have about this project.
Hi, Tim. Let's see if any board members have questions for you. Board members, anybody? Well, I think this is really exciting to see that an applicant wants to take something back to its original state. And Paul, you indicated this is going to be adobe? It's going to be made out of adobe?
Yes.
And so, do you know when this building went into what this is now? What the building is now? It was originally Adobe, Pueblo Revival, I'm gonna guess. And somewhere along the line, it became this building.
Madam Chair, that is correct. And you could see the alterations in the roof line on the Santa Fe County tax parcel map. Heather, this would be the second slide of presentation. Perfect. Thank you, Heather. So on the Santa Fe County tax parcel, you can see the outline of the parapeted roof line, the original, and then the additions just put on the property throughout time, just adding. And so that's original Adobe block construction, and then everything else is framed out. You can see the construction gradually taking place. And in the 1980s, you have that large addition on that south side, just enveloping the whole structure. So to take it back to the Adobe block construction, to repair it, rebuild it in Adobe block construction is pretty incredible.
Thank you. Any questions for either Mr. Curry or Paul, board members? It appears not. Yes. Are you if you have a question, you need to come forward, or if you want to present, you've got to get sworn in.
Are you associated with the application, or are you going to comment on this? It's gonna.
Is that her? No.
Okay, I think Heather asked, are you an applicant? Are you part of the application, or are you just a member of the public that wishes to comment? Okay. Speak right into that mic, because it's
Did you want the applicant to come up?
You are an applicant? No, you're not. Okay. Hold on till I ask for public comment, and you may speak. You don't have to go that far away. I think it's going to come next. Matter of fact, ma'am, I will ask for public comment. Ma'am, You can speak now. Just state your name and your address and get sworn in.
Sorry, I'm a stickler.
Okay, please raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record.
Rhea LaRue, 409 Camino Don Miguel.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Thank you, Chair. She has been sworn in.
So I was going to ask for the picture again of the south and where the wall says 5-7 is going to be.
They'll put it back up.
Sure. So this is the two.
What is she tripping on about?
We don't really know.
Sorry. So this is along the back. This is along the field.
All if you're speaking, you've got to speak right into that mic so the recorder gets you.
Pardon me, Madam Chair. I believe, your name again, ma'am? Drea. I believe Drea's question is the coyote fence on the proposed north yard wall elevation. What's your question, ma'am?
I think that
Proposed south is the third drawing.
so this is up against the field. Is that true?
No.
South.
Mm-mm.
You have to raise your hand.
Chair Rios, I believe Drea's question is on the proposed south yard wall elevation. Now, can you please state in the mic your question for everybody to hear?
I'm just trying to be oriented as to where this is with the back lot.
Rios, the applicant has raised their hand.
Oh, Tim?
They can answer the question.
Sure.
Ma'am, are you referring to the vacant lot that is at 425 Camino Don Miguel?
If I understand her question correctly, I believe she's wanting to know where the fence and the wall, what they face.
Well, the 423 and 425 isn't separate. Okay, so that would be here. And this is where it ends. Okay. Thank you.
Your question, I suppose, was answered satisfactorily.
Chair Rios, I don't think we can have side conversation.
Okay, can you please raise your right hand? State your name and address for the record.
It's Pamela Kelly.
Can you speak right into that,
My
please?
name is Pamela Kelly.
Do you solemnly declare, actually an address?
My address is 409 Camino Don Miguel.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. She's been sworn in, Chair.
Hi there, everybody. Rhea and I and about 6 other houses are in a compound that abuts this entire project. I own the empty lot that the north side coyote fence would be on. I own the house that is right next to the second story illegal garage built on the property line and not an appropriate distance from our house. And then to the south, there's our house, Miss LaRue's house, my brother's house, and Joel and Joan Brink's house. That's the southern border that we're also that Drea, I believe, is asking about. And there's a coyote fence on my southern boundary, which borders the empty lot that these clients have bought and that are ultimately going to build a house on. So does Drea, so does my brother's. So we're concerned, is that the southern fence that is now proposed to be masonry wall? It's question one. And then I just want to go on the record that that second story garage is built on the lot line in the north of the field I own, where the coyote fence would be. And the east side of that property is also does not conform to any normal setback. It's about 5 feet from our house. So I know they're not doing anything to that, but I want to go on the record that I think was an illegal structure because it's built on my lot line on two sides. And while I applaud that the owners want to restore this house to its original beauty, that's marvelous because it's a pretty ugly property right now. But that modern two-story garage, I wish they would get rid of it or make it contributing or something because it is not a legal structure. It's on my lot line on two sides. So we'd all like clarification about this. Item 5, remove existing coyote fence on the south property line, replace it with a 5'7" masonry.
Madam Chair, to answer the applicant or answer the question, Heather pulled up an aerial. So on this property, if you can see on the southern boundary, the dash marks that, yes, thank you, Heather. Those dash marks is going to be the southern boundary of this proposed design. Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Sure, but you need to come forward.
Can't hear a word she's saying. She's just pointing. She's complaining about the guest house, but that guest house was there long before she built her house. And she's still.
My house was built in 1949. I did not add anything to my property. I added a small addition in 1990, but that house was built in 1949 by the owner.
Heather or Attorney Rubalid, I really need you guys to help us in this situation.
Chair Rios, with reference to something that has been built and is currently in existence as to setbacks, we would have to do research as to whether it was legally built. But if it is in existence and has either received permits or has been there for such a long time, the setback standards, they're not required to remove the building and meet those setback standards at this point, as long as they don't enlarge it. And that's probably the reason that they're just doing the minor renovation and not changing the footprint of the building. With reference to and I would just like to point out with the removal of all the additions that have occurred over time, they are actually now complying with the setback adjacent to the roadway. Before there were encroachments adjacent to the roadway. So, but without further research on the garage issue, I cannot answer that question.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Attorney Rubin.
We've encountered situations where people have asked about encroachments to their lot line where the structure's been there for some time. And I can't say I've done extensive research on this, but the research I've done indicates that there's a 1-year statute of limitations for municipal ordinance violations. And so I don't know if it would be legal or constitutional to cite somebody for an ordinance violation that has been in place for over a year.
So this board can go forward with a review of this case. Is that what you're telling us?
I didn't understand that to be the question. Yes, you can go forward with a review of this case. I don't think the issue is the removal of the unlawful encroachment. I don't see that as the issue here.
Thank you.
And the case really relates to the main residence, not to the garage structure. Because there are no additions or changes to the footprint of the garage structure.
Thank you for the clarification. Board members, any questions or comments at this point? No.
Sorry.
Anyone,
If I could fill out one more.
anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this case?
All right. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Edward Archuleta, PO Box 2952, Santa Fe.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, he's been sworn in.
Madam Chair, board members, again, my name is Edward Archuleta. I'm the newly hired Deputy Director of the Old Santa Fe Association, so you're going to be seeing me around for a while. I go way back here at City Hall. I've actually worked at the planning department over 40 years ago. My background is actually historic preservation too, so I feel like I've come home. I just want to commend the applicant for doing something as noble as this and actually tearing down almost half the structure to restore it to its original look. Usually applicants want to double the size of their structure, and in the process sometimes destroy the architectural and historical integrity of the building. So this is very commendable and noble what this applicant is doing. And I just want to thank him and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Archuleta. Anyone else in this audience wishing to comment, come forward? No one else. Anyone on Zoom?
One moment. Just stop share the screen. All right, so there is another member of the public that would like to speak, Stephanie Beninato, who has previously been sworn, and I would like to note that the applicant would like to respond after the public comment is complete.
Should I go ahead?
We can hear
me?
you.
Okay, great. Stephanie Beninato. Excuse me. I was initially very enthused that the applicant was taking down the additions to the historic structure and that what it was going to be returned to a modest size structure. But I now understand that that's just a prelude to adding back on to it. I also have to comment on Mr. Rubelid's supposed research on encroachments and only having a year, because if you were talking to the city about that encroachment, it could take 2 or 3 years before somebody even goes out to the property to see if that's a problem. And I can't believe that any court, the statute of limitations on an encroachment would be 1 year, when most statutes of limitations are at least 2, but more likely 4 years. So that seems like a very short time, and it seems like a way of not allowing people to resolve issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And did you indicate that Mr. Curry wants to speak?
Yes, Jarios. Mr. Curry, you may unmute.
Yes, I just want to comment that in order to appear in front of the board, one must go and obtain a preliminary zoning review, which was done with Stephanie Pereira at the city. And what Stephanie indicated that this 2-story structure at the back of the property is considered legal non-conforming. So that should not be an issue going forward. And then finally, I wanted to make sure that I thanked publicly Paul Duran for the great job that he's done on this project. He's answered the phone pretty much every time I've called. He's responded to my emails within 24 hours. So he's just been a great person to work with. So I wanted to thank him. I'd also like to thank everyone on the board and Chairperson Rios. I want to thank you so much for your service for so many years. So in closing, thanks to everyone.
Thanks for your comments, Tim, and Happy New Year. And let's see what the board does in reference to this particular case. I will entertain a motion. Yes, Member Aguilar Medrano.
Case number 2024-009651 HDRB at 423 Camino Don Miguel. I move to approve the application as submitted.
Do I hear a second?
Beachside second.
Roll call vote, please. Mariah?
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenu?
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano?
Yes.
Member Degnan?
Yes.
Member Mather?
She stepped out and let's give her a minute.
Yes.
If she comes back. Not, if not, we do have a quorum, so. Motion was made to approve the project that we just heard.
Got it.
Member?
Yes.
Perfect. Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Next case is located at 1126 Camino de Lora. And is that applicant here? The applicants are here. Okay. Lanny?
Good evening. This is case 2024-9612 HDRB for 1126 Camino de Lora for new construction on a vacant lot. Caught up with me there, Heather?
One moment.
Okay, come back. Okay, next slide. 1126 Camino de Lora is located on the south side of Camino de Lora down a private drive. Next slide. The vacant lot at 1126 Camino de Lora is located at the end of a private drive off Camino de Lora near the Camino de Lora and Camino San Acacio intersection and is located in the downtown and east side historic district. Next slide. The property slopes from the south to the north with a grade change of approximately 20 feet from the front to the rear of the structure. Next slide. The site is located in the Foothills Escarpment Overlay District, which also regulates the height and design of buildings. The applicant has preliminary approval from the escarpment review team for the proposed project. Next slide. The applicant proposes the following new construction. Next slide. To construct a 3,800 square foot single family detached residence in a Spanish Pueblo revival style to a height of 19 feet 10 inches at the highest point where the maximum allowable is 16 feet 2 inches. The height of the structure at the top of the slope is 12 feet 2 inches. Next slide. The additional 3 feet 8 inches in height is requested per section 14-5.2D 9C2F, where the board may increase the allowable height by 4 feet at their discretion without the need for an exception for proposed buildings and additions located on a sloping site where the difference in the natural grade along the structure's foundation exceeds 2 feet. Next slide. So this is our proposed east elevation. It shows very well the slope and heights of the buildings there. Next slide is the south elevation. This is the top of the hill elevation. Next slide is our west elevation. Also again showing where we have the first floor garage and then the house, lower level. Section 14-5.2 D9C2F reads, the board may increase the allowable height for proposed buildings and additions located on a sloping site where the difference in the natural grade along the structure's foundation exceeds 2 feet. In no case shall the height of a facade exceed 4 feet above the allowable height of the applicable streetscape measured from natural or finished grade, whichever is more restrictive. This increase in height shall be constructed only in the form of building step backs from the street. And next slide. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with section 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 14-5.2E for downtown and east side historic design standards.
Thank you, Lanny. Board members, any questions for Lanny at this point? It appears not. Applicant, please come forward and get sworn in.
Will you please raise your right hand? State your name and address for the record.
10-15-20 Powell Street.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Thank you very much. Madam Chair, he's been sworn in.
Sir.
Aside from just the height issues, as you can see, it's a very challenging site, but it is landlocked. It's for today you saw that it's virtually impossible. Also, even after just by location of the property. A little background is this is a family property, so the people that are building on this property are related directly to the house that sits in front of it. So that's why it's sort of a private drive. And in general, that entire neighborhood has a lot of family members that are direct neighbors right across the street. So from that standpoint, it's almost a compound of history of the Ortega family there. But the house itself complies with as much as we can do with the historic requirements, and basically we're just trying to get this approved so we can move forward. I think, like I say, if you saw the site, it's way back there. So, take questions.
There's lots of trees there. You're going to take all those trees, and are you disturbing the ground itself?
Escarpment rules require us to revegetate anything that we're taking out. Plus, they're also asking for additional trees. So basically, if you look at the site plan, we're introducing a bunch of new trees along with existing trees. So yes, there's going to be some trees that come out by the bees.
Let's see if other board members have any questions or comments. Board members, questions, comments at this one? Member Aguilar-Padrón.
I have more, but low-hanging fruit first. I see here in the elevations that looks like you intend to have rounded corners on the building.
Yes, this will be bull-nosed everywhere, so we'll have that Pueblo style.
And will the windows be inset, and what will that depth be?
Yes, they will, and that's once again nature of code, because nowadays with the R30 required insulation, the walls are thicker than what you would ever expect. I mean, so it's going to have an adobe look just by nature of code. So,
Do you have an estimate of what that depth might be at the end?
Well, typically, anytime I do a Pueblo style, I like to see at least a minimum of 4 inches, and I think we're specified at 4 inches.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Here's not at this time?
Me.
Oh, yes, never beats that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question about the color choice for the concrete surfaces, the Baja Red. That's just proposed for the sort of ground pavers, or?
It's like the staircase and stuff, anything that would be exposed concrete. And if you've ever worked with colored concrete before, the samples are always much richer looking than what actually happens. It ends up being a lot more muted. So from my experience, we shoot for like color that will eventually look more like dirt, more like mixed with the landscape. You can't trust colored concrete. They do fade. They do eventually, when they're poured, they look much lighter. So just FYI.
Have you used that on the adjacent properties at all?
Not on the adjacent properties, no. But other projects I've worked with, historic. It ends up looking very nice.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have something? Other questions right now? If you don't have anything further, I'll open it for public comment. Anyone in this room wishing to comment on this particular project? Please come forward, get sworn in.
Can you please raise your right hand? State your name and address for the record.
Adam Ortega, 1132 Camino San Acacio.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, he has been sworn in.
Madam Chair and board members, I'm a sibling to my sister Verna, who is building on the last of our property that we as siblings have, our parents so generously provided for us many years ago, and from our families and many years prior to that. So I'm just in support of the project, and we're all coming back home in our older years to come back and live in our ancestral land, and to make sure that the structures that are there contribute historically and aesthetically to what is already there and what we grew up with and what we certainly love here in Santa Fe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Medrano, 520 Lolita Street, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Chair, she has been sworn in.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I am an acquaintance of the applicants and have known them for 58 years. Verna, the female applicant, and I grew up together, spent many years on that property. As the previous commenter stated, their family has owned that property for many years, and I spent many years with them during our youth. And am looking forward to them returning to the state after being away for so long and being able to utilize their family-given property. So I stand in support of this new structure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? I, as a person that was born and raised here, I'm always delighted to hear the people that have similar backgrounds as mine, that they come back and that, that those properties have been passed on from generation to generation. And I'm glad to hear that you all are building there, and that I wish you a lot of luck and happiness in those, in your endeavor. Thank you. Board members, anyone else? Yes, on Zoom?
Yes, Chair Rios, Stephanie Beninatu, who has previously been sworn.
Stephanie Beninatu, I am sure you are going to approve this project, and I don't see any reason not to, since it is a vacant lot with a slope. However, to say that it is reminiscent of what was there, I doubt that there is that large a house anywhere on the east side for the longest time. And also to think of it as a compound. I understand that everyone's related, or mostly everybody's related, but this is a single individual lot, and eventually it could definitely be sold to somebody else. And so it's great that the family is able to stay together, but I think when you're looking at this, you have to be realistic in that it is an individual lot that can be sold to somebody who's not related to this family. And I don't think they're asking for anything that requires you to give them some kind of exception for the, setback from a lot line. But it's just that attitude of, oh, it's a compound, so who cares? I think that ultimately down the line, it's an individual lot and you have to think of it in that way. Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom? Thank you. Board members, motion, please. Come on, you're all here.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair. In case number 2024-009612 HDRB at 1126 Camino de Laura, I move to approve the application as submitted, granting the additional 3 feet 8 inches in height per section 14-52D9C2F, based on the 20-foot slope in the site.
Second.
Madrano will second, with a friendly amendment potentially, that the corners will be bull-nosed and that the windows will be recessed 4 inches as stated by the applicant.
I'll accept that as friendly. Thank you.
Any other amendments? None. Roll call vote, please.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Dagnan,
Oh, yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Biche.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Next case is located at 428 San Antonio Street. Is that applicant here? Thank you. This is Paul's case.
They're all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's taking a minute to pull up. So go ahead and start.
Madam Chair, members of the board. Heather, would you put it to the second slide?
Just one moment.
Thank you.
Apologies for the technical issues. It appears we have lost the network. Paul, if you can please go ahead and state your verbal presentation. We'll go through the pictures in a minute.
Thank you, Heather. Madam Chair, members of the board. In case number 2024-008779 HDRB, the single-family residence at 428 San Antonio is listed as significant, and the garage 428A or guest house 428A San Antonio as contributing, with the east facade designated as primary, to the downtown and east side historic district. The structures are also listed as part of the Camino del Monte Sol National Historic District. The main residential structure and the garage were constructed in the mid-1920s in the territorial revival architectural design style, as seen by the adobe block and wood frame construction materials, the red brick coping, wood frame double hung windows, and white picket fence. The proposed new construction of the garage in the territorial revival design style will contribute to the property and enhance what has been previously constructed. So the current case, the request of construction of a detached garage includes 300 square feet of garage to the height of 12 feet 6 inches, where the maximum allowable height is 15 feet 11 inches. Construct a 131 square foot portal to a height of 9 feet 6 inches on the west elevation. Construct a CMU wall with wooden gate between the garage and main house to a height of 5 feet with a 6-inch offset from the main structure. And construct a CMU wall on the south elevation of the garage to a height of 5 feet. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with section 14-5.2D General Design Standards for all historic districts and 14-5.2E Downtown and Eastside Design Standards. Thank you. Staff stands for questions.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions, board members? Member Aguilar Madrano.
Madam Chair, Paul, will the colors and finishes match that of the existing residences, like the stucco, the windows, doors, etc.?
Madam Chair, Member Aguilar Madrano, yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Appears not. Applicant or applicants, please come forward.
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Daniel Lujan, 612 Old Santa Fe Trail,
Do you,
New Mexico.
thank you. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Chair, he has been sworn in.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I'm pleased to present you this proposed project located at 428 San Antonio. Paul, thank you. It's always a pleasure working with you, and as Tim said, you're always on top of it, so thank you. My clients have finally found their permanent home here in Santa Fe. They've been living here for quite some time, looking for houses. They found the perfect house on 428 San Antonio. It was under construction in 2012, and the lady that had previously owned the building let it go down, and they're actually in the process of bringing it back up to historic standard. And so in addition to that, they're needing a small one-car garage, so they can also, with a portal that will also have their workshop stuff and outdoor working equipment and stuff that they can house inside, and they don't have to leave it outside. And so they're requesting to build this new garage for themselves. The garage is set back from the front property line 20 feet in the northeast corner and 22 feet in the southeast corner from the front property line. It is also pushed as far as you can south on the site plan. That way we can still kind of have a view corridor of the historic guest house in the back, and it has nothing to, it's not blocking the main house at all. We'll also be building the 5-foot-high stuccoed yard wall. That way they have a little more privacy in the back. It will also have a territorial style wooden gate on that. And as the question came up earlier, the colors will match the main house. Brick coping, white trim around the windows. It'll have the same pattern as the main house for the divisions on the windows as well. And that's what we're proposing to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you indicate that the wall is going to be 5 feet?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Member Vitale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to that, the new 5-foot stucco wall, is the design of that modeled after any other wall that exists on the property now?
Yes, along the rear property line, there's stuccoed walls with brick coping. We're not putting the brick coping on this wall, but there is some stuccoed yard walls along the property line.
And how tall are those?
Probably around 5 to 5'6".
Thank you.
Any further questions? There's not. Anyone in this room wishing to comment on this case? No one on this room? Anyone in Zoom, on Zoom?
Moments, please. Chair Rios, no. A mess.
I do have a question to the owners. I heard on the field trip that you two are doing a beautiful job interiorly to the home and that you are taking it back to its original state. Is that correct? So one of these days, I am going to go knock on that door. And yeah, I heard that you were even restoring appliances. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or false, but I just found that was very interesting, very interesting. So,
It's turned out very beautiful. It's a beautiful house.
yeah, they're doing a lovely job. If they're doing that job interiorly, they're also taking care of the property exteriorly. Board members, if you have no questions, I will entertain a motion, please. Aguilar Madrano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case number 2024-008779 HDRB at 428 San Antonio Street, I move to approve the application as submitted with the condition that the colors and finishes will match that of the existing residence as the applicant has stated, such as the stucco color, the trim color, the radius of the structure's corners, and the doors.
Second.
Yes,
Point of
Member
discussion.
Bichette.
And I'd like to suggest a friendly amendment that the new stucco wall between the new garage and the house include the brick coping consistent with the other stucco walls on the property. I think it'll harmonize better with the new garage, which also includes the brick coping. If I'd like to just know from the applicant if that's an acceptable condition. If
Yes,
it's
that's
appropriate.
acceptable.
You accept that?
It is friendly.
The motion.
Thank
Also, clarification, and that'll only go up to the 5 feet.
Yes.
Including the.
Yes, thank you. Yes, 5 feet maximum, including the brick coping. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second and some amendments and anything further? Not anything further, so we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Member Beachhead?
Yes.
Member Bienvenu?
Say bienvenido?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Member Aguilar Madrano?
Yes.
Member Degnan?
Yes.
Member Mather?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much and good luck on your
Thank you, Madam
project.
Chair and Board.
Next case is located at 829 Manhattan. And this is also Paul's case.
Madam Chair, members of the board. In case number 2024009652, the single-family residence at 829A West Manhattan Avenue is listed as contributing to the Westside Guadalupe Historic District, with the west elevation designated as primary. The main residential structure comprises of a 1950s garage remodeled in 2017 to a residential structure. The western elevation of the garage addition is the primary elevation attached to a newly constructed residential structure. The structure comprises of approximately 1,088 square feet of roofed area. The original architectural design style of the garage was in a vernacular form, and with the new addition was more of a Spanish Pueblo revival vocabulary. The applicant is requesting the portal addition as a needed element for safety entering and exiting the structure from inclement weather. Staff finds that the exception criteria have not been met and recommends denial of the exceptions as the application does not comply with 14-5.2D general design standards for all historic districts and 14-5.2I Westside Guadalupe Historic District design standards. Staff would consider conditional approval of the portal addition if the applicant would modify the dimensions so that the primary western elevation would not be adversely impacted. Should the board deny one or both of the exceptions required to support the proposed design, the applicant shall redesign their proposal and return to the board with a new application. Thank you. Staff stands for
Paul,
questions.
are we not able to see the elevations? What's going on?
Still working on it, but we just got a flash.
Any questions for Paul? Members of the board? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an interesting case, in my opinion. Looking at the property today, I would say that if I were starting from scratch, I would question some of the designations that the board has given this property. I think that to some extent that the visual character of the garage, which was what was being protected, has been lost. However, I think that due respect is owed to prior board decisions in a case like this, and the board was very clear over multiple meetings that they wished to protect both the garage as a contributing structure as well as the west facade as the primary facade. And in agreeing to the addition, they went to some trouble to protect the primary facade by creating a separation between that structure and the new structure, which still exists today. So I think that granting the exceptions as requested, which would result in the portal covering up more or less the separation that the board was so clearly desirous of creating in this particular instance, would in essence undo what the prior board's decision was intending to accomplish. So I would have great difficulty granting the exceptions in this case for that reason, because I think we would be disrespecting the prior board's decision and in essence undoing the prior board's earlier decision. I don't think that doesn't mean that can never happen when a current board feels that a very significant mistake has been made. I don't think there's anything to prohibit revisiting decisions that have been made previously, but I don't think this case comes even remotely close to that kind of a situation. So with that, I guess what I would ask from my perspective, since I couldn't approve the exceptions, but still see a great need for portal in this particular entry because of it being north facing. I imagine it's quite problematic in the wintertime. So it sounds to me that staff is saying you could recommend approving an exception or a portal if the dimensions were changed such that I think what you're saying is that it would not extend any further to the north than the primary facade. Is that pretty much what your view would be?
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, that is correct. In keeping with the previous board's decision, conditional approval, the board was preserving that facade, just as you stated. And thank you for sharing what you just stated. You did it very eloquently. And in given that, I shared with the applicant, given what the board has previously gave conditional approval, staff can't recommend approval of what the board is trying to preserve. So with that, staff would give a conditional approval if you minimize the dimensions of the portal, giving the homeowners the needed coverage that they need, because it is a need. And I've seen it when it dumped the 1.5 foot snow. It's dangerous for them to enter into their home. So they do need that. However, how do we do that while still preserving that western facade? And so the applicant said they wanted to go before the board with the design that they have. And if discussion is that they can minimize it to some extent, that may be possible.
What would you say would be the dimensions that would be acceptable to staff? And because I think an exception would still need to be granted, right?
Yes.
Even just for any portal in that location. But if we were going to specify what it would need to be, what would be the dimensions of the portal in both directions? In other words, from south to north. East to west.
Chirios, Member Bienvenue, I believe it would be 4 feet from the entry into the house north and 6 feet to the west.
And otherwise, my perspective is the materials and the design are acceptable. You don't disagree with that, do you?
Madam Chair, Member Bienvenue, no, sir. They are
That's all I
acceptable.
have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Paul? None? Applicant or applicants, please come forward. Oh, we have Member Beachside.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paul, do you have a facade map? Can you just clarify for us what is considered the western facade? I think it kind of looks like 2 facades.
Chair Rios, Member Beachside, yes, ma'am. Heather, would you be able to show a picture of that west elevation? Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. On the bottom, Member Beachside, they're looking at putting the portal in front of that entry door above the canale, and that western facade with the window on the bottom photo is their primary. Heather, would you be able to go back one more, maybe? You can't see that. So there, maybe there you can see kind of in between the tree, that western garage, western elevation. It's not very clear, but maybe in the Santa Fe County parcel map, you can see that, well, you can't really make it out either. In the elevations, Heather, would you be able to go to, let's see, there. Thank you, Heather. So Member Beachside. Member Beachside, the garage, or that western facade, the primary facade is there on the left with the small window.
I think I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not applicants, please come forward.
Hi,
Can you please raise your right hand? State your name and address for the record.
Jutan, 1219 Saragota Road.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. He's been sworn in.
Thank you for all the comments, actually. Kind of, made my presentation a little bit easier. I kind of just wanted to reiterate, that as Paul kind of outlined, the whole intent for this portal is to protect that entryway, and to also render it a little bit more usable. The entry door is kind of is really starting to get, to a state of disrepair. And so the owners really wanted to, build this portal. So we do understand, the exceptions that we're applying for. And Paul did, he did kind of ask us to consider reducing the depth of the portal. The reason why we decided to kind of just keep to this depth of portal, which is about 6.5, 7 feet, is because, just by reducing it, we still would have to apply for the exception. It would still be, within that 4-foot required setback that was granted back in 2017. So we decided to just, go for that, 6 to 7 foot portal, which renders it a lot more useful, having a place to store something and still sit, underneath that portal. Another thing that I wanted to kind of bring to light is, despite 2017, what happened in 2017 when the project was approved, the result seems to be that the whole house now, including the historic garage, seems to be a homogeneous, and with a single identity. And I appreciate the exception that states that, we shouldn't be 10 feet, I believe. Is that correct? 10 feet from a primary facade, to actually isolate and maintain the integrity of historic structures. So, but what's happened is that the whole thing now just seems like it was built at the same time, except for the little window in the garage, which is in its original condition. Furthermore, and I believe the neighboring owner, 829A, who's here also, the parapet of the garage was raised in 2017. So, seems like all these things were done to make it look like it was built at the same time, as opposed to make the garage stand with its own integrity to an extent that you can recognize it as a historic structure. So, I mean, we hope that then you can grant us the exceptions. But we're definitely willing to hear what you have to say. Okay.
Okay, will you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Brenda Valetti, and I live at 829 West Manhattan Avenue.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Chair, she's been sworn in.
So yes, thank you, everyone, for your time listening to this. I know that we're asking for exceptions that Paul can't recommend, and I think that you summarized really well what's gone on with the house. I work as an archaeologist. I filled out 1 million Higby forms myself. And, if I were, I think that, I don't think that by changing the decision today by making both exceptions, I want to make the argument that it wouldn't necessarily be undoing the board's decision before or saying that the board's decision before was wrong, but recognizing that the situation of the house has changed. I think that today, evaluating that structure, it would be considered non-contributing. I mean, we could even propose a reevaluation to propose it as non-contributing. As Ju was saying, there was a change that was made during construction apparently, and now it's enveloped by an entire house that's in a different style. And I think that one of our concerns with making the portal shorter was just that it would actually be aesthetically like strange and that it would actually be keeping with the style of the house more to have the portal be a little bit bigger, which would mean that it would intrude. And so I appreciate your recognition that we absolutely need something there. It is horrible. In the summer, we forget about it, and then in the so anyway, that's my final appeal, and I really hope that you would consider just granting 2 exceptions and allow us to go ahead. Thank you.
So the depth that you guys are asking for is 6 to 7 feet?
Yeah, I mean.
And what
the
is
outs-
Paul suggesting? Paul? You're suggesting a lot less.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm suggesting 4 to 5 feet.
4 to 5.
Thing of the bank or just the depth?
Madam Chair, I think the depth, the length, if they extend it westward to the corner of the property, I think that would be fine. Because I don't think that detracts from that western elevation. And I think it would give them the needed support they need to walk in and out of that entryway.
So board members, comments, questions? Did I already ask for public comment? Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this case? Not anybody here. Anyone on Zoom?
For the record, we'll take 6 feet.
Yes.
Chair Rios, Stephanie Benato, who's previously been sworn, you may unmute.
Thank you. Stephanie Benato. I agree with Member Bienvenute's statements about the former board's decision and the need to uphold that. And I don't really think, I understand there needs to be some protection for the entry, but it doesn't need to interfere with the primary facade. There are ways to design and not do that. And I think that's really the question in front of the board. Are there alternatives that would work that would have much less or no impact on the primary facade? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
By the way, excuse me, one more thing. It's really hard to hear people. People are not actually speaking directly into the mic. They go in and out. The last speaker, the architecture agent in the case before too, kept going in and out. And sometimes actually even Member Bienvenue does that. So I just ask that you be really cognizant of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is important that we all speak right into the mic so that everyone here can hear and also so the recorder gets everything. Board members, yes. Member Aguilar Medrano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just sharing some thoughts about this. I usually am quite a stickler for primary facades, but I think this case does have some unique circumstances, in particular the placement of the front door. Like I can't see a way to move this whole portal to the west so that it's detached from the primary facade while still protecting the front door, which is really the whole primary purpose of this. You know, some houses do little eyebrows over the door. I'm not really in favor of those either. So given the placement of the front door, I think if the applicants are willing to come down to 6 feet, which it sounds like they are, I would be inclined, I think, to approve the exceptions. The one kind of side comment I have is on the west side right now, the edge of the portal appears to be completely flush with the existing building. So I might just ask the architect that might look better if the portal was just slightly inset rather than be flush. And I'm talking, the architect can look at this, but 6 inches a foot minor, just getting things perfectly flush typically doesn't end well. So to make it look more intentional, to me, the 6 feet depth is a fair compromise. I also wouldn't want to reduce the depth too much because I kind of like the way that it's hugging the corner of that garage. And I think it might look awkward if it gets too shallow and it's like just barely touching that corner. So I'm trying to balance the practicality of what you need with the exception and also the end result. We want this to look good at the end. And I don't want to leave you looking with a funny looking portal just to meet the exception, because I think it is a valid point on a north facing primary entrance.
Thank you for that. The portal right now it does sit only 6 inches from the corner, but I'm happy to kind of move it back by a foot. No problem.
Okay, yeah, and I do actually see that relief better here in the elevation. I'm looking at the plan view where it looks
Oh, I
flush,
see.
and it might just be the scale.
Sure.
So knowing that you have it inset is good.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm happy to push it back by a foot.
And I'll leave that up to you, even like as long as it's inset a little bit, even if it's as you have it 6 inches, I think we're fine.
Okay.
Thank you though for the clarification.
Thank you.
Almost sounded like. See where it goes.
Okay, in case number 2024-009652-HDRB at 829 West Manhattan Avenue, I move to approve the application with the condition that the depth of the portal will be reduced to 6 feet, finding that the exception criteria has been met. And also just noting that the applicant has stated that the west end of the portal will be inset from the facade of the existing structure.
You second it?
Second, Member Dagger.
Anything further to add? Roll call vote, please.
Member Mather,
Yes.
Member Dagnan,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano,
Yes.
Member Bienvenu,
Yes.
Member Beechett.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Much, and thank you all. Next case is at 715 Gregory Lane.
Comment? Can I make a comment? Thank you. Do we need to add to the last motion that revised drawings will be submitted to staff for approval?
Yes, absolutely. But to the last motion, revised drawings need to be submitted. Yes, Heather.
Yes, and Chair Rios, just one question. So in the motion, when you said noting that it needs to be stepped back, is that the 6 inches or the additional foot as stated by the applicant? So it would be 1 feet, 6 inches. 1 foot, 6 inches.
Yes. So as submitted in the elevation, which I believe he stated was 6 inches, it's the plan view that looks like it might be flush. So I think the as is correct. Minimum 6 inches.
Okay, thank you.
Already, Lanny, yeah.
Anything to formalize the,
Do,
or is that understood?
that's a good question. So by Member Aguilar Medrano stating that by having this discussion, does that actually go into the motion, or do we need to redo the motion, or what?
Madam Chair, the code actually reads that when there are conditions that are imposed, they do have to submit drawings. So I think that's implicit,
Oh, okay.
say conditions. Oh, I didn't understand that
The other portion about the 6 inches.
the 6 inches. I think that may need to be clarified and may need to be affirmed. I'm not sure if everybody understood.
I mean, she
implicit.
said it, she just didn't indicate exactly the 6 inches, correct? So is that acceptable?
It's just a clarification I was seeking. I think the motion was understandable to the
So we can move on?
Thank you. You can move on.
Okay. Lanny.
Good evening. This is case 2024-9615 HDRB for 715 Gregory Lane. 715 Gregory Lane is on the east side of the street, just south of West Gomez Road. The single-family residence at 715 Gregory Lane was constructed in 2016-2017 and is listed as non-contributing to the Don Gaspar Area Historic District due to its age. The 2,915 square foot territorial revival style main residence with garage was approved in 2016 under case H16069. The applicant is requesting the following exterior alterations: to construct a 215 square foot addition to a height of 12 feet where the maximum allowable is 16 feet 1. The existing garage is 12 feet in height and the addition will be the same height. The stucco will match the existing El Rey buckskin color. The new windows and doors will be white with a three light door in taupe, and there will be 2 skylights. The interior of the space will be remodeled to include a bedroom, bathroom, office space, and a single vehicle garage. They're going to install a ground-mounted compressor on the east side of the garage and construct a 42-inch high coyote fence to screen that HVAC compressor on the northeast corner of the garage. And construct a 475 square foot freestanding casita to a height of 11 feet 8 inches. The casita will be stuccoed in El Rey cementitious buckskin color. The parapet will be territorial in detail with Endicott iron spot brick. And the windows will be wood TDL aluminum clad in white. There will be a small portal on the north side painted white with territorial dental details, a skylight in the entryway, and a wall sconce on each exterior door. They will also be installing a compressor on the south side of the casita and construct a 42-inch high coyote fence to screen that compressor. That'll be on the south side of the casita. And construct a coyote fence with pedestrian gate to a height of 5 feet 10 inches on the northeast corner of the casita running east to connect to the main residence. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds the application complies with section 14-5.2D general design standards for all historic districts and 5.2H Don Gaspar area design standards. It's time for questions.
Thank you, Lanny. Questions for Lanny, board members? No questions for you, so we'll ask Mr. Purvis to come forward.
Hello, can you please raise your right hands and state your name and address for the record?
For Purvis, 518 Old Santa Fe Trail.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, he's been sworn in.
Chris, what do you have to tell us?
Madam Chair, I don't think I could add a lot to what's there. We know the building's not contributing because we do it 2016. I'm just trying to make this a little bit more room because the new owner has different requirements than the last.
Thank you. Any questions? Board members? We still don't have questions. So yes, Aguilar Majano, member Aguilar Majano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we bring up the east elevation, please? Existing and proposed. I don't have a problem with anything in the application. I just had a question for you, Chris. Was there any in a conversation about potentially doing a portal over that new door? House just has a lot of symmetry to me, and those doors on the other side feel kind of left out to me. It was just, and it's a bedroom, so I didn't know if there'd any been thought about having a little outdoor seating area for that bedroom and doing a portal to match the one on the other side.
We ran out of setback, so
Ah,
yes, thought about it. No, can't fit it in.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else, board members? Guess not. Anyone in this audience wanting to comment, come forward, run down.
Oh, can you please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record?
Zakos, 714 Gregory Lane.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Thank you, Madam Chair. She's been sworn in.
Thank you all for your time. We have looked at the drawings and they all look very well considered. My concern is how close the casita extends to the lot line. I feel that it affects the streetscape in a way that will make it feel more closed in. And I'm not the next door neighbor, but it's going to stand out in a way that no other house on the street does as far as coming forward is concerned. I'm sure many of you saw it this afternoon. I know you make a field trip. You probably noticed that. Considering that it's, did you say 12 feet or 11? 11.8, almost 12 feet on the casita. Coming that close to the street, there's nothing else that looks like that currently in place. And I wanted to go on the record as saying, as far as the streetscape is concerned, I think it will interrupt it.
Thank you. Chris, would you want to say anything in reference to that?
Madam Chair, members of the board, it's the smallest we could make it, preserving the various setbacks. As you know, that lot has a big pivot taken out of it for the turnaround for the city. So that building has to be very narrow, only 12 feet wide at that point. So that's why it has come up. Really a 475 foot building. We tried to make it as small as we could. Small.
And how does the casita relate to the buildings within that streetscape in terms of this person coming forward saying that the building is, that there are no other buildings such as this one?
I think other buildings are that far forward. They're not, they usually have a portal in front of them. But I'm not.
Because this house is, I mean, it had a lot of property in the front, and then the house sits way in the back, correct? And then the casita is going to come forward from the house. How much forward from the house is it coming?
The casita is 10 feet separated from the house, because there's windows there. Then comes all the way to 7.5 feet. So the casita is 30 feet long. And then back, it's 12 feet wide at the front, and a little wider.
So there's a 7-foot gap between from the street to the beginning of the casita.
That's correct.
And would you say that is common in that neighborhood, Lanny?
Yes.
I would say that's very common.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, board members? Anyone else in this room wanting to comment? Come forward.
Can you please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record? In the microphone.
622 Gomez.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Can you please say that in the microphone? Thank you. Madam Chair, he's been sworn in.
Thank you. And just speak right into that mic.
Thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to, I know you guys are going to approve it. And, but I just wanted to second, what the neighbor over at 2014 stated. It's the largest house on the street. It's beautiful. I mean, she's got a beautiful property there. And, you know, I've walked that block every day for the last like decade and a half, watched everything fill in as it should have. It was just fields, you know, but, it's hard to imagine like filling up that space from the street. Like it's just the space isn't there. And I understand it's been built just to make the, you know, just to make it inside the lines or whatever. If you guys were out there, I just can't believe that. I mean, you're all like so much more like aesthetic than I am, but I couldn't believe that you wouldn't just be like, God, that seems crowded. And so I did just want to say that for the record. I know it's going to happen. I really love the attention. Thank
For your comments, so they're much appreciated.
Hello. Can you please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record?
Kathleen Parksios, 723 Gregory.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury? Thank you very much. Madam Chair, she's been sworn in.
I've lived on Gregory Lane as long as the addition has been there. And there are others who couldn't be here tonight that while we understand that this is going to be approved, it is going to alter the streetscape of the addition, the Gregory Lane addition. And it will just be, I mean, right now, if you're walking down the street, you'll suddenly see a big wall with a window. That now you would see the turnaround. So it'll alter streets. And while the city planner said that this is something that occurs in our neighborhood, I'm not familiar with any other property that has, it's just jutting out. It will just change the way our
Thank you very much. Anyone else in this room wanting to comment? No, but is there anyone on Zoom?
There is a hand raised for a person who is on an iPhone. All it states is iPhone. You may unmute and please state your name and address for the record and be sworn.
Hello, my name is Monica Montoya, and I live at 726 Gregory Lane.
Thank you, Monica. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Chair, she's been sworn in.
Thank you,
Monica,
Madam
you
Chair.
have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the H Board. I just wanted to say something about the parking, and I've been in contact with Christopher Purvis. He was very responsive to my request to give me more information on the parking, but I'm concerned that the 3 parking spaces that he's showing on the site plan are really rather small. They're, 15 feet by, I think he said 6.5 feet, something like that. And realistically, I'm wondering if those parking spaces would be satisfactory to fit a car and not cause an encroachment into the easement. The scale on the site plan is a little weird. If you see, there's a setback from the edge of the cul-de-sac to the existing house of 22 feet. And when you factor in the addition, it looks, and it's not scaled correctly, or it's not, I didn't mean that it wasn't scaled correctly. It wasn't labeled. And so it feels like it's a very small space, maybe 14 feet. Although Christopher says it is 15. I just wanted to make sure somebody was looking at that and considering that.
Did you have anything further, Ms. Montoya?
No, thank you. Just the parking. I was hoping someone could address that and assure me that it meets minimum code requirements. I think the code calls for a one size fits all parking space is 18 feet long. And so I just wanted to make sure this parking space met code requirements.
And though this board doesn't deal with parking, Chris, did you want to answer that?
Sure. Yes, I did send something to Monica. She asked me this question yesterday. The residential parking does not use standard parking spaces. So when we submit something to the PZR to show that you can fit cars, so those are that is a standard size car. I said is a car is a 15 feet by 6 feet. It's 12 feet. They use as a standard way to show parking. But just so we're clear, we need 3 parking places. One of them counts as a garage. One she's concerned about is just an extra parking. Because I want to make sure that you can always put 3 cars outside in case, as people sometimes do, don't put all their cars away in the garage. We have plenty of room, 2 cars outside and the 1 car inside. And that's all I have to say about residential. I would like to add something to, I heard from the neighbors. I've been in contact with the neighbors. I sent them plans earlier, although I sent it to only one of them, and it's not a formal neighborhood, so it didn't communicate with everybody. Originally, we proposed the building at 12'8". It said it seems like a lot, so we shortened it. And when you go down that street, houses do come to the street, exactly 7.5 feet short. Start down the street, you cannot see into the cul-de-sac, see other houses. This is true, is one more house, but it's kind of, the other houses also come.
So, Elani, it is your position that this house is in harmony with the rest of the homes in that neighborhood?
Yes.
Board members, do you have anything further to ask? Pardon? I think that we did. Anybody else wishing to comment?
Yes, Chair Rios, Stephanie Bedonato is on Zoom as well.
Stephanie?
Yes, hi, thank you. I think it will change the streetscape, having a house that close. I think there's some houses that might be, I don't think quite that close actually to the street line. It is within the setback required. I just kind of do wonder, and I know it's not your purview, but why is there this turnaround? Because there is a vehicular gate there that would take you to Gomez. I mean, the city would have to open the gate, but it's open. It's just that you have to move the gate and then you would be on Gomez. And it's unfortunate because it would seem like less somehow impacting the streetscape. It was the far side. It seems like you just have a more space there to set it back a little bit more. But I don't think you can do anything about that. I understand the neighbors' concerns, but this is not really a historic neighborhood. I guess you just have to look at what's harmonious within that streetscape. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Heather, anybody else?
Chair Rios, no, but if I might offer a comment?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Chair Rios. So I double checked the code and Monica Montoya is correct that the depth the depth of a parking space is required to be 18 feet. Might point out that those preliminary zoning reviews are based on not detailed plans, but a conceptual plan. So I would like to bring it to the attention. That's not something under the purview of this board, but I would like to bring it to the attention of the applicant. That's something that they would probably have to deal with at the building permit level.
Thank you. So if there's no one else on Zoom, no one else wishing to comment here, I will ask board members to comment or make a motion. Member Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and make a motion unless there's any further discussion. So, just as preliminary, all of the neighbors' concerns are understood and received. So my motion and whatever the board does is not intended in any way to diminish those concerns, but I do think that in this case, we're presented with, limited options of what this board has the authority to enforce here. And our job is to enforce a style code in this case, and not the zoning code. And so some of the issues that are being raised really, in my mind, pertain more to the zoning issues, especially parking.
You all hear him?
And also the just the whole idea of the setback from the street. I mean, technically, we are permitted and even authorized to consider any new structure for harmony with the district and the streetscape, but that really, in my mind, is intended to apply to a stylistic harmony. I'm not saying that there could never be an instance when some other aspect could be relevant, but in this case, if a property owner has by the zoning ordinance the right to build a structure in this exact location, I think it would be improper for the board to overrule that zoning authority on the basis of a style standard. So I think that in this particular case, it's not really up to the board to decide whether or not there should be a structure there, since the land use code already permits that. We are more, our charge is to decide whether or not the style of that particular structure that's going to be located there is consistent with the streetscape and the district standards. And in this case, I do think that the applicant has also done a pretty admirable job of trying to minimize the issues that have been raised. Certainly they're under what the zoning code allows for height, for example, which would really could make this a much more intrusive structure along the lines of what's been represented as being a concern to the neighborhood. So it's just a way of saying I'm certainly completely sympathetic to all of those concerns, but I do think that this property owner has the right to build this casita here, and I think they've done a very admirable job of designing it in a way that fits with the house as well as with the district standards. So, and I guess I need a clarification. The agenda states that it was well, what is the height? Maybe I can get from the applicant. What is the height that's actually being requested at this point in time for the casita, the garage, and the garage?
The casita is proposed at 11'8". It was proposed at 12'8". The original plans I submitted. After talking to the neighbors, I lowered it to 11'8". The poles you saw out there today are 11'8". And I amended material and sent it to Lonnie, but I might have created some confusion. The height for the garage is just keep current height, it's just 12. The extension for the garage.
Yeah, I'm just reading the agenda and getting myself confused now because I think maybe the agenda is reversed, the casita and the garage. The casita is 600 square feet. Okay, okay, so we have it right. So let's go, I'm going to make my motion then. 2024-009-616 HDRB 13, I'm sorry, let me back up. 2024-009615 HDRB 715 Gregory Lane. I move that the project be approved as submitted with the additional condition consistent with the applicant's representation that the casita will be at a maximum height of 11 feet, 8 inches.
Second, Degan.
We have a second and you take a roll call vote.
Member Beachhead?
Yes.
Member Bienvenu?
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano?
Yes.
Member Dagnan?
Yes.
Member Mather?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. And I do want to thank all of you that came here this evening. And I have a bit of a differing view than Member Bienvenu. Yes, we do have to look at the architectural style, but we also have to look at properties in terms of homes that are being built, in terms of the harmony and the positions of them within certain neighborhoods, so that they harmonize with the neighborhoods. And that is something that I think is a given that you look at. If something is out of proportion or is placed in a certain spot that it should not be, with a neighborhood that has been established for a long time, certainly I think that you would have to look at that. That is my viewpoint, and with Member Bienvenu, I totally respect, I deeply respect his position and his interpretation, as I would any other member of this board. And I have to say this in particular, he is one of the most thorough members I've served on this board for a little bit of a while, and he is one of the most thorough members that I have heard, and I mean, he really does his homework.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, because maybe I overstated the case. I just want to say that, yes, I do think that placement, for example, can absolutely be within the purview of the board. But if the end result is to deny the ability to build at all when the zoning or the code permits that, that's when I think we would most likely, if not certainly, be overstepping our boundaries. But I don't want to say that we only look at style and never consider placement, for example.
Good. I'm glad that you agree. Okay. Well, but I do thank you, concerned and involved neighbors. Our last case this evening is at 1302 Canyon Road.
Good evening. This is case 2024-9616 for 1302 Canyon Road. 1302 Canyon Road is down a private drive and does not have street frontage. The single-family residence is listed as non-contributing to the downtown and east side historic district. The single-family residence is Spanish Pueblo Revival in style with divided light windows, portals with vigas and metal roofs on the south and north elevations, and parapeted portals on the south and east elevations. According to the applicant, the residence was designed and constructed by the original owner, John Majette, in 1965 in a recent Santa Fe style. According to the applicant, the guest house addition was constructed in 1977, and an addition on the west elevation was constructed in 1990. With a reworking of the front entry in 2000. There are no case documents on file in the Historic Preservation Division to corroborate this information. However, comparing the 1992 aerial photo to the current floor plan does show some alterations have occurred since 1992, especially in regard to the front entry or circular portion of the structure. The applicant is requesting the following exterior alterations: to construct a 170 square foot addition to a height of 12 feet on the casita. It will be, there's a few typos in this staff report, I apologize. It will be stuccoed in Ellery cementitious buckskin color and have TDL aluminum clad windows in white with a skylight. The exterior lighting will consist of sconces on either side of each door. They'll be constructing a 600 square foot freestanding garage to a height of 12 feet 8 inches. The garage will also be in cementitious buckskin color with windows and doors in white. The garage doors will be wood clad in diagonal panels, stained warm brown, and there will be a small eave on the east side for drainage. They're going to be constructing a 40 square foot addition. I'll point out the staff report says 400. That was a typo. It's 40 square foot addition on the south side to facilitate the connection from the guest house to the main house in the location of the existing pergola. And they'll be installing a compressor on the east side of the garage behind the existing coyote fencing. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds the application complies with section 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 14-5.2E, downtown and east side design standards.
Lanny, any questions for Lanny? No questions for Lanny at this time? Chris?
Madam Chair, and members of the board, I think I didn't express myself clearly to Lonnie. John Miguet designed it, he didn't live there. Designed it for Richard Camille, who I met. He's getting on and he's planning to move into the casita so his daughter can live in his main house. All the facts we have about dates and stuff directly the person who lived there. And everything she said about the dates originally started by, yeah, and then we kept on working on it. As long as.
Thanks for that clarification. So, do you have anything more to add?
No.
And board members, do you have questions for Chris? They don't. And I don't think that there's anyone left in this room to public comment. Yes.
Very quickly, I noticed there's a discrepancy, and I don't know if it matters that much, but the address is 1302 on the agenda. It's 1320 elsewhere. What is the number?
1302.
Okay.
And yes, I made the original mistake. I fixed it, thought everywhere, but I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Heather, is there anyone on Zoom?
No, Chair Rios.
Okay. So, board members, I will entertain a motion on this last case for this evening.
I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, on case number 2024 009616 HDRB 1302 Canyon Road. Move approval. As submitted by staff.
Mather seconds. Anything further to add? Nothing further? Roll call vote, please.
Member Beach.
Yes.
Sorry, my apologies. Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano.
Yes.
Member Dagnan.
Yes.
Member Mather.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you, Chris.
You. I had a little comment about the previous case, just how I see it. No, it doesn't change anything. But I agree that placement of a building is totally within your purview. wanted the building to be back 20 feet. We did that all the time. We make people lower stuff, move them around. Which is why I agreed to lower the building when somebody said something. I also moved the window out so that it wasn't a blank wall. So I think it's all in your purview. But I also think that it's a difficult street. It's a street that's already. So. Right. That's all I want to say was, everything you had to say was.
Thanks, Chris. That's also a former member talking, former H board member. Anything under discussion?
Madam Chair, and board members, I wanted to just pass along, I discussed earlier that I'd done a little bit of research about encroachment on people's property lines. I represent, to a degree, code enforcement and constituent services. And we get these calls all the time from people who sometimes they just bought property. And as they're moving in or after they've lived there for a short time, they realize that there's a structure from a neighboring property encroaching on their property line. So sometimes we find out it's been like that for years, that it's not something that's under construction at the time the complaining party calls. New Mexico statute annotated, or NMSA, as we abbreviate it, 35-15-5, controlling maximum time for commencing proceeding of enforcement of ordinances, reads, all prosecutions for the commission of any offense made punishable by ordinance shall be commenced within 1 year after the violation and shall be barred thereafter. It's a very short statute of limitations for a municipal, but generally you'll find municipal ordinances that have shorter periods, whereas criminal offenses in district court have a longer period of statute, longer statute of limitations. And what's significant is that that language is very clear. It doesn't give any leeway as to when the person aggrieved becomes aware of the offense, as like in a fraud statute, when you realize you've been defrauded, that's when the statute of limitations starts running. This reads that when the violation occurs, statute starts running and the city has 1 year to pursue that. And that doesn't mean an aggrieved party might not have a civil complaint that they can file in district court, say for nuisance or trespass or something like that. Those also have statutes of limitations, probably longer, but I'm not as familiar with those as I am municipal prosecutions, but that is the applicable law as it applies to ordinance enforcement.
Anything else? Nada? Matters from the board. I do want to say that on the case on Asika Madre, I think they were proposing a coyote fence in. Nobody did. So can staff indicate that to them?
Madam Chair, is that on Canyon Road that we just heard?
The one on Asika Madre, the one that they're redoing the house from what it used to be?
Yes,
Excuse me, it was on Don Miguel, by Asika Madre. You know which one I'm talking about?
yeah, we'll go ahead and state that.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, board members? No. And our next meeting is January the 28th, 2025. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second? Roll call vote, please.
Member Mather?
Yes.
Member Dagnan?
Yes.
Member Aguilar Medrano?
Yes.
Member Bienvenu? Member Bichette?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has passed. You are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mariah.